What's up, everybody? Tom Coffey here, founder of obstaclecourseworkouts.com. Today I want to chat with you guys about a question that's been on my mind recently. That question is, why do people participate in obstacle course races? And this question's been at the sort of the front of my mind since I recently saw the documentary Rise of the Sufferfests, all about obstacle course racing. I know I'm a couple years late to the party, but nonetheless, I thought it was excellent. And I've been thinking about this question a lot. Like, why do people pay hundreds of dollars to be super cold, super miserable, maybe even electrocuted? Why do people do that? Like, why is obstacle course racing so popular? And that's what I want to kind of reflect on a little bit today. So initially, I was thinking about this, and I've kind of had my foot in the obstacle course racing game for a lot of years. I've always, even in the military, we did a ton of obstacle course centric stuff, but I was always keeping an eye on what people were doing outside of that. And back in it to this day, I think there's a definite appeal for people who haven't run an obstacle course race before. They see their friends, they post up a cool Facebook picture, them jumping over flaming logs or throwing a spear or submerge in a cold, swampy, whatever obstacle, and it looks cool. And I think there's an inherent desire for people to stroke their ego cat. I call it the ego cat. You want to make the ego cat purr. But there's an inherent desire for people to want to, stroke their ego a little bit. And that could be one reason why people find themselves at the start of their first obstacle course race. They want that cool profile pic. They want that cool photo for Instagram and with awesome hashtags. They want to take a celebrity photo with, their favorite obstacle course hero or something, just find them on the course. But I think there's that inherent desire to have people look at you and say, that's badass, especially if you work Monday through Friday, you're going out, this is sort of the weekend warrior spirit, feeling the warrior spirit a little bit. And I think that draws a lot of people in initially because they see their friends having fun, they want to be part of the part, join the party, and that's cool, that's great. But I think that is very short-lived, and I'm way more interested in why people continue showing up for their second or fifth or even 10th race or more, or why they continue doing these races season after season. They know they're hard. They know the sort of the glories. It's not as awesome and appealing maybe as the first race. Maybe they have a whole Rolodex of cool photos now, so they're not doing it for the photo or the ego. So there has to be something more, and that's the question I've really been trying to think about, or the reason I've been trying to think about is what's drawing people in after that first race. Maybe after the ego gets the, fuel for the fire, you get the cool profile pic, you're a badass, everyone's pumped for you. What keeps you coming back? And I have three, this is just my hypothesis, just my guess, but I have three reasons that I think are pretty sound and accurate on why people continue to run obstacle course races. I'm gonna lay those out, offer my thoughts on it, and we'll see where we go from here. So number one is, I think at the very human primal level, we are wired to move. Human beings are wired to move, and we're wired. It's wired right into our DNA to run, to crawl, to be dirty, to be cold, to climb over things, to carry things. Right? It's a very primal aspect, but it's a very much an aspect of what makes humans humans. And I think obstacle course races capture this perfectly. They force you to run. They force us to crawl. They force us to climb. They force us to be cold. And I think there's a lot of appeal, maybe at a very primal subconscious level, but there's a lot of appeal to that type of challenge, that type of moving through your environment, because that's exactly how we're wired to move. We're not wired to be sedentary or sit at a cubicle all day and just eat fast food and lose the ability to move. That's contradictory to what it means to be a human. And so I think the popularity of obstacle course races has a lot to do with just the fact it's getting people, back to moving the way we're designed to move. We've evolved to move, and somehow that appeals at a very deep level to the psyche or the soul or whatever you want to call it. But I think that's a huge reason why obstacle course races have gotten so popular and why they will most likely continue to stay extremely popular for a very long time. So that's one. The second big reason I think is why people continue to show up for these races is just a tremendous feeling of accomplishment, right? If you're, what I mean by that is if in the modern world and most developed countries, life is pretty easy. Like we live in climate controlled houses. They can be hot when it's cold. They can be cold when it's hot. We can have food. We can have any item you want delivered to your front door. You don't even have to leave your house anymore. So life is pretty easy. We have cars or electric scooters or electric bikes. Like we don't even have to work to get to where we want to go. Life's pretty easy. And I think that people want to be challenged. They're very thirsty for a challenge. They really crave a challenge deep down. And there's obstacle course races they're hard, like through and through. Even a short one is still a butt kicker. So just to get out there and get your face in the mud, climb under barbed wire, get some cuts and bruises to finish, across the finish line is a huge sense of accomplishment. And I think that a lot of people, because life has gotten to that point where it's quite easy now, for the most part, I'm not saying everyone's life is, but for the most part, blanket sweep, it's technology, modern advances in science and medicine, and has just made things easy. People want that challenge. They want to be pushed. They want to see what they're capable of. They want to see what they're made of when things are hard, when their heart rate's up, when they're just in self-doubt, right? People want that. And I think the obstacle course race scene has, again, really captured that in its entirety. Like they're kicking people's butts. These obstacle course races are tough. They seem like they're always coming out with a new flavor now to kind of up the ante a little bit. And they're hard, but finishing them is such a huge sense of accomplishment. It's just, you're on cloud nine, right? It's so euphoric. So, and again, I think that's really something that people have been, missing and longing. And it's, again, kind of that direct appeal to the primal root of doing something hard and coming out on top, successfully coming out the other side and be like, that was hard, but I did it. And again, I think that appeals to quite a lot of people, that tremendous sense of accomplishment. And sort of lastly, my general big thought on this is that shared suffering builds strong bonds. So what I mean by that is that people going through shared hardships, physical pain together, suffering through the same type of atmosphere like that, tend to build these deep-rooted bonds because you're like, that was really hard, but I know this person did it. They did the exact same thing. They went through the same pain and suffering, and for some reason that builds a really, really tight human bond. And I experienced that in Army Ranger selection, going through the same training with the guys to my left and right, and the guys that we all went through together and made it. And some of those guys they're going to be my best friends for life, because it's like they understand what the pain and the suffering was like, because everyone was doing it together. And that's what obstacle course races capture too. Like everyone's running the same course, it's the same terrain, it's the same weather, it's the same hills. It's everyone's doing it. And that builds a unique shared bond through the sort of the pain and the suffering that's really hard to replicate. You can't really see that at a marathon or like a 5K. It's just different. But just the way these courses are set up, again, they're hard. They're forcing us to move, but they're also forcing us to work together as a team for the most part. Like people are helping each other over walls. They're encouraging each other. They're giving you a boost. They're picking you up when you're down. And that's really powerful because everyone's out there suffering through the same thing. So I think kind of just to wrap this up, those are just to, I guess, recap the big picture here. I think people could be drawn to obstacle course racing initially just to get a cool profile pic or Instagram pic, just to stroke the ego a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's cool. If that's what gets folks out and onto the course, I love it. Then that's great. Everyone should have a cool profile pic to show their friends you earned it. But at the same time, I don't think that's a very shallow reason to. It's not like you're shallow, but that's like a very shallow reason why people continue to come back. I think that there's a lot more going on deep down, and that's what continues drawing people into the sport, and they just stay in it. They keep showing up for races, right? You keep seeing the same faces at these races, you see new faces, and all of a sudden they become the same faces. And because it appeals to that primal instinct for human beings to move, like what's wired into our DNA. It appeals directly to our sense of accomplishment, doing something hard and coming out on top. And humans want that. Like, we want to get challenged, we want to push ourselves, and we want to, see what we're made out of. And also, it creates a lot of shared bonds. Like, you become really good friends with, the people on the course. You make these really interesting friendships that last probably forever, because you're like, dude, that was really hard, but I know you were out there doing it right there. You went through the same course. Let's go have a beer. Let's hang out. Let's be friends. And that's cool. So because of that, I think obstacle course racing has a really bright future. I think it's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And even Spartan Race founder Joe DeSena is making a very strong argument as to why these races should be part of the Olympics. And you know what? I bet he'll succeed. I bet he'll get it. I bet obstacle course racing will become an Olympic sport, because it's just so popular. It's just so, it's just really drawing people in for those reasons we talked about. And again, I think it'll be here to stay. I wrote a blog article, touching, kind of expanding on these topics a little bit more. So if you enjoyed this video, then you can read that blog article. I'll link it in the description below. But just expands on this video a little bit, on my thoughts. And you could also leave a comment if you agree, disagree, maybe have some other ideas you think that, reasons why obstacle course racing is so popular. It'd be awesome to hear those too. So yeah, check out that blog, linked in the description below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Talk to you guys soon.